Hello everybody, my name is Red Wolf Does Game Dev, and today I'll be teaching you how to use a trigger in Unity. I have made a little test setup in which we have a player, a little entity here that is going to scare the player, as well as a hallway and a door on the end of it. Currently looks like this, and if we were to play, we would be able to walk around here and nothing would happen. What we are going to do is add a trigger around this area, where if the player walks into it, this entity will become visible, which means it'll have to start off disabled. The player enters a trigger, it will enable this entity. While the player is in the trigger, we will be running a random number, which will randomly turn this light on and off. Then, after that, when the player exits, we will close the door and these lights here will turn off. I'll be doing these two as well as a door closing with an animator, and for the spotlight I'll be using just a random number generator. So, let's get started. First off, we are going to need a trigger. Trigger is made easily by going right click, 3D object, and then any of these 3D objects will do. However, a cube is advised because the box collider is the easiest one to work with. I will reset this position, move it into the hallway, move it up a bit, and scale it so it fills the entire hallway. Let's up it a bit in the width and a bit in the height. Then I'll go into 3D view and I'll make this cube a bit bigger, like this. Now this is still a cube, which means that if we were to play right now, after it's done initializing, we can't really go through this. We solve this by going in here and turning off the mesh renderer, which will make us be able to see through here, as well as turning the box collider over here in a trigger by simply checking is trigger. Now we can freely walk around. As you can see, we can easily walk around. Now this close because I didn't set up the animator properly. So getting the trigger to actually work. Let's go into scripts. In scripts we'll make a new folder. I'm going to call this triggers folder. And in the triggers folder I'll make a new Mono behavior script, and I'm just going to call this tutorial trigger script. We're going to wait for it to compile, and then we'll start to code it. We're not going to need void update, we're not going to need void start either. So we can get rid of this, and we'll serialize field. Game object. And I'm going to call this zombie. Because that is what this is over here. This is merely a zombie that looks a bit freaky because of the lighting that I put on it. Next up, we're going to need to serialize for a animator. So we're going to serialize field again. Animator, and I'm just going to call this anim. Now, first one. On trigger enter. As you can see, we get a function that has on trigger enter, which is a void, but we also get a collider called other. We'll need this collider. So we'll start off with if other dot tag equals equals, and then quotation marks, player. And then we'll just use the curly brackets, and this is going to be executing the zombie code that will activate it. So we'll do here zombie dot set active, and this is going to be true. And that's all we have to do for the on trigger enter. This will only execute when the player enters the trigger and never else. So let's go to the skinless zombie. Let's turn him off. Let's go into cube. Let's put the script we have in it. Put the skinless zombie in zombie, and we'll put the animator in here. Now, I did just say we are going to look collider other.tag player. We can't forget to first assign that tag to the player. You always have to do this manually. So now we have player tag, which means if we walk through the trigger, the zombie should become visible. And there he is. Now with that being done, I'm going to go back into the script. We're going to go into the serialized field game object, and we're going to add zombie light. Then we'll do void on trigger state. We now have void on trigger state, collider other. We can just copy this code again. Now, why are we filtering on the player tag? The collider is based on the rigid body of an entity. Every entity that moves around has a rigid body, so you're also going to have AI that walks around, and they're also going to require a rigid body. And we don't want to trigger certain things, for example, save points or checkpoints, because an AI walked through that. We only want to do that when the player walks through that. That's why we're filtering on the tag if it's player. If it is the player, then we are going to actually execute this code. That's what we're doing here. Now we are going to go into the randomness again, like we did in our previous tutorial, which this is the continuation of the doors here. No, this is the wrong one. It's going to be in animation event scripts. As you can see here, this is the one where we use the random range to look for a random clip. We're going to somewhat do a similar thing where we are going to do int, and we'll call it disable light equals to random dot range, and the range is going to be between 0 and let's say 20. Then we can go here. If disable light is smaller than, for example, 10, we're going to zombie light dot set active false. So if we roll the random chance and the number is below 10, the lights go off. And to turn them back on, we're going to do else the zombie light is going to be on. Zombie light dot set active true. That should be that. Let's save it again. Let's compile the script. Let's go to our trigger, which I still haven't renamed yet, so I'm just going to do that quickly. Trigger. Now we have to give it a light, so I'll just give it the spotlight above the zombie. There we go. Yep, that light is flickering all right. Now, the last thing we have to do is we have an animator here, where we have a parameter that closes the door once the parameter is set. So, what are we going to do? Void on trigger exit. Once again, we're also going to have to do the if statement. If other.tag equals player, we are going to go into anim dot set trigger, because we're using a trigger in the animator. The animation triggers are a little bit different than the actual physical triggers we have in the game. But besides that, we have set the trigger. We're going to go back into the animator here. We're going to get the name of set trigger, and we're just going to paste it in here. So when we exit the trigger, it's going to set the trigger in here. It's very confusing naming, I know. Maybe I should have used a bool. That's my bad. So we playtest it, we walk through here, and the door closes. Exactly as we wanted it to do. Great. That is everything for the trigger. That's all you have to do with the trigger. It's very simple, it's very easy, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section down below. I wish you all a splendid rest of your day.